This is the Hoff Time Report with Idaho Freedom Foundation President Wayne Hoffman, one of Idaho's most respected, influential public policy voices.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It sure is good to be in the studio again with another special guest. And we've got Jason Pierce, the mayor. I was going to say president of Eagle. I don't know why that was in my brain. I just had to get it off my chest. Jason's the mayor of Eagle, Idaho, and it's good to have you in the studios and hear a lot of good things about what's going on in Eagle. Conservative leadership. That's rare in city government, I've noticed lately.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. I appreciate you having me. And, we have a constituents and folks in the city of Eagle and myself that are very conservative. And in 2019, we were able to turn that back around, and we're excited about what we've been doing and looking forward to the future.
But not without controversy. You've had some critics that don't like what you're doing. And what is it, that you're too conservative or not enough conservative? Or tell me what it is you believe is driving some of the, even today, the criticism of your work.
Well, it's kind of interesting. You hear about all these national things, where you have the Democrats or the liberals coming after people, and you wouldn't think it would happen in a little city like Eagle. But believe it or not, most of the critics that we have are coming from the party that was running the city before 2019. We had a liberal mayor and 2 liberal council members, so 3 out of the 5. And, we made it a big deal in 2019 when we ran that was important for people to know. These nonpartisan races that people say are nonpartisan, every decision you make is based on your beliefs. And the beliefs are different between Democrats and conservatives. Sure,
and that's a political construct. The legislature of the state of Idaho, unlike legislatures in other states, has said that these are nonpartisan races. But if you go to Texas or Florida or other places, the mayors run as Republicans or Democrats. But then you've got this Mayor LaGuardia, New York City mayor, who said there's no Republican or Democrat way to take out the trash, which is that I think that's not actually very true.
Well, and I agree with you totally. I mean, that's the thing is, right? The way that you think about business, the way that you think about government and everything determines how you take out that trash. It's funny you mentioned trash. Trash was a big controversy in Eagle, and the Democrats made it a huge issue. And it really wasn't. What we were doing is saying, listen, the people in the middle, the 60%, should not be paying for the 20% at the low end and the 20% at the high end. Everybody should be paying for their fair share. We shouldn't have a socialistic trash system. And that's what we had. And when we made that change, it upset people.
Describe the change.
Yeah, so the change was that we went to another company. And what we did is we basically saved about 60% of our residences, $75 a year. Okay, so the people at the low end that were paying to not even pay to get someone to come to their house to pick up the trash were being supplemented by those in the middle. And those that had so much trash that it took a lot of extra effort from the trash company, they were being supplemented by the ones in the middle. And so it was okay. If you're going to use more trash, you pay more, and you at least have to pay to get the guy to come to the house and pick up the trash can.
But still, there's a limit to how far you went on that change. So, for example, there are cities that have experimented with sort of a free market trash collection system where one can go and choose their provider. You didn't go that route.
No, we didn't. And the
reason,
reason,
you look at it?
Well, we looked at it, but from a practical standpoint, it doesn't make sense. So think about this logically. If you have, let's say, 3 different trash companies in your neighborhood now, you have different trash trucks from different companies coming through your neighborhood to pick up stuff. Trash trucks are not, the most mobile. They're not great when the kids are out playing in the street with their bikes and doing things, which we all encourage our kids to get out and do and stay off of, the computers. And so when you create an environment where there's a lot more chaos, which is what that would do if you had 3 or 4 trash companies, it would create competition, but it would also create a chaos in the everyday life of people in their neighborhoods.
Would it? I mean, you could always say, okay, it doesn't matter which company you pick, but you have to do the trash collection on Thursday or Friday or just Thursday.
Right, but that's fine. That would be great, but you still have 3 or 4 trucks running through that neighborhood, different companies, different drivers, different people going through. One of the things that we did it was really important to us was public safety with the trash change that we made. The company that we were using before actually had 2 trucks tip over in Eagle, right, in a year. And so it's like, how are you training your people? So now you've got to make sure all these companies are doing the right thing instead of being able to focus on one. Like I said, have one trash truck come through your neighborhood, and it's not multiple trash trucks at a time, which, people in Eagle especially, they like their quiet solitude lives, and trash trucks are not the most quiet, nice things coming through their neighborhoods.
Aren't they? I love trash.
Do you love trash?
My granddaughter has a little toy trash truck, and it makes all kinds of noises, and you can make the back end go up and down and stuff like that. I love it for all of like 5 minutes. Then it's just I need to throw it somewhere.
Yeah, it was funny. One of the biggest complaints I had is my trash now gets picked up at noon instead of 6 a.m. or vice versa, right? I mean, even those changes in people's lives are a big deal. So having a trash truck come through, one company comes through at 6 a.m., the next one comes up at noon, one comes at 8 o'clock at night, whatever it is, it just doesn't help in the neighborhood to have these multiple trucks. I mean, that's even an issue with like recycling, right? You got to remember, when you have recycling, you have a second truck coming through your neighborhood. When you have trash or grass clippings, you have a third truck coming through your neighborhood. And, that isn't a good, safe thing for communities either.
I didn't want to talk about this
I know,
necessarily because it's just one of those things that just kind of comes up, right? But even on the trash thing, I'm sorry, we're going to get off trash here really fast, but the recycling thing, isn't that just a big scam?
Well, so I've had a lot of comments about this for a long time. It makes sense in large cities. We do not have a big area to do that. As a matter of fact, it cost our trash company 3 times as much to take trash to the recycling to the recycling plant as it does to the dump. And 80% of the stuff they take to the recycling goes back to the dump anyway. So I've always said that, in Idaho, it doesn't make sense because we just don't have enough population and people. And then I love the comment of, a couple restaurants in the last couple of years have gone to paper straws because they're worried about the straws getting into the, sea life. I don't know much of our trash that's getting out to the ocean. Our trash.
Have you bothered to put RFID on it or something so you can figure out where it's going
like
and
I
track
said,
it? Little GPS trackers or something to make sure.
It's pretty easy.
You don't like wildlife. That's what's wrong with you.
It's pretty much going to the landfill. And I understand that we want to make sure the landfill has less stuff in it. But once again, when you have something where 80% is going back to the landfill anyway, how much time and effort and what's the true carbon footprint of trying to recycle? And so I've always had that kind of thought processes. Here it doesn't make sense. Now it might in a place like New York City where, something might get on the barge and be out in the ocean. I don't know. I haven't looked in those areas, but I can tell you right now, it definitely doesn't make sense here.
Yeah, I think it doesn't make sense anywhere. So I appreciate the thought. Another thing that's been controversial is the annexation of the big development just outside of town. And I don't know if you want to talk about how people have responded to that and why you believe that was a good idea.
Yeah, sure. No, so there's a couple things. So we're still kind of going through some of the legal things. So I'll tell you my philosophy on the growth of Eagle is what I'll tell you is I live on 3 acres for a reason. I get to control how close people put their trash cans to my driveway. I get to control how close they can build a building to my house. I can control my views. I can control all those things. Okay. I believe it's the same thing with the city of Eagle. And that is that we need to control as much of the land around us to make sure that other people's philosophies and influences do not come in on us. Back in 2021 when there was or 2020 when stuff was going crazy in downtown Boise, right? Here I am, the mayor, driving back and forth from Boise to Eagle to make sure there aren't carloads of people coming into Eagle, right? And if that influence keeps coming closer and closer to our city and our residents, they're not going to want that. So how do we make sure that Eagle grows Eagle's way and not from the influence of Meridian, Boise, Star, Garden City, all the other cities around us?
So you're picking in 10,000 houses?
Yes. So basically the project was 18,000 acres. Okay. And it was about 8,500 homes. Okay. So when you look at it, it's 1 home per every 2 acres. So to give you a perspective, Meridian is about 6 homes per acre. Eagle is 1 home per 1.5 acre on average. Now, that doesn't mean we have 1.5 acre lots, but if you took all the land mass of Eagle and all the homes, that's what it would come to. So this actually makes the city of Eagle less dense in the future. And so it's really making sure that we have the ability to control that. And the county, not 2 weeks, 3 weeks after we the council made the decision on Avamore, is they approved a project out in Cuna that's 4 units per acre. I mean, they're giving the ability for that to move forward.
Yeah, it's really weird because when I first read that, I know, I've talked to Jason a little bit. I understand a little bit about Eagle City government stuff, but just enough to be dangerous because I don't pay attention to it. But I wanted to have this conversation because these are things that are being discussed all over the state of Idaho, and it's the interrelationship between individual cities and counties and cities and other taxing districts that are intertwined in that. And yet in this particular case, it was kind of the reverse of my expectation, because I know that I owned a house south of Boise, and one of the reasons why it was south of Boise was because it wasn't in a city.
Yeah.
And I didn't want the tax burden from the city. And here you're saying that the more conservative move is to bring this development into the city limits, into the city jurisdiction.
Correct, and it's because of the way we're developing, right? You didn't want to be in Boise because Boise is not developing in a conservative way.
Well, that, and I didn't want to pay the taxes for the city.
But the thing is that if the people in Avamore will end up paying about $10 to $15 more a year because they get rid of some of the county taxes they pay, and the Eagle City taxes are the third lowest in the state. Our levy rate is the third lowest in the state. So it really isn't adding a huge burden, but they're getting a lot of extra stuff with it, right? They're getting the trails and the parks and all the things that the city of Eagle residents are wanting to have in their area.
I'd use those anyway.
Well, but see, you would. And see, that's an issue. That's an issue for the city taxpayers, right? I represent the city of Eagle taxpayers. And when we allow the county properties to stay county and not pay into that taxing to help take care of those parks, you're now kind of freeloading on the residents of Eagle because you're coming to the parks that they pay for themselves, and there's no way for us to control it because it's public, but that's where it's being paid from, is their taxes.
Right, but I just want to push the narrative a little bit. Sure. This is very esoteric conversation. No. I understand that there's limits to the reality of the way Wayne's world
Wayne's
works.
World, I like that.
But theoretically, if that were the issue, what one could do is you could say, okay, we've got this trail, and we're gonna sell it to a company, and the company's gonna own it, and then they can manage it. And then when somebody comes and they want to use our trail, they won't be freeloading because they're gonna pay some kind of fee to use it. And if I want to use it, then I will. And that's way more free market and perhaps way more conservative than bringing people into that system, making them pay the taxes to maintain it with the idea that they won't be freeloading.
No, I totally agree with you. I just don't think in theory that works, because so you're fencing off every trail so that no one can get on it unless they pay to use it. I mean, the trails do so much more than just for the people, right? They're economic drivers, right? They bring people into our city to use our small mom and pop businesses, to shop at our Albertsons, to go to our restaurants, right? That you've created an atmosphere for people to come into your community and really make it so that you can have these things for your residents. So one of the things that we really have to look at is that we don't have a lot of rooftops per acre, right? When you look at our numbers, like I said, one house per 1.5 acres, our average. So for our businesses to survive, they have to have people come in, or else they can't be there, because our residents alone cannot keep them running. And so what do we do to create an area where people want to come in, enjoy the city of Eagle, but then go back to wherever it is that they live, whether it's Boise or Meridian or other places, so that our residents can have some of those services that they normally wouldn't be able to get.
Yeah, okay. I'm just gonna push a little bit harder.
No, that's great. Please do.
I want people to understand that I actually think that what you're doing in Eagle is really good. I mean, you're pushing the city in a direction way different from where it was going before, and that's very healthy. So this is all just kind of spirited, intellectual exercise to see how you respond.
Sure.
But so you have these things that people enjoy, but you ultimately are still funding them with use of force.
Okay.
In other words, you pay your property taxes or you don't, and if you don't, then potentially you're going to lose your property.
Okay.
So you're saying that we have this amenity. Mm-hmm. It is so wonderful that we're going to we have to make people pay for it. That's how wonderful it is. We have to force people.
So let's go back a little bit further. So
Sure.
every city in the state of Idaho has to have a comprehensive plan. Okay, and a comprehensive plan is something that's put together with thousands of residents that come together. It's about an 18-month process. We have to redo it every 5 to 7 years, and it is the people that put together what it is they want in their community. And then we are the ones that, through budgeting and everything else, have to figure out how we pay for it and do it. But they're the ones that want that, right? And now, of course, not every single person gets involved in it, obviously. Not every single person likes what happens, but that's not how the government stuff works, right? It's you have a majority, or those that come together to put it together, and then it drives it forward. And I think if you talk to most residents in Eagle, they would not want to get rid of the Merrill Park splash pads. They would not want to get rid of Gerber Park. They would not want to get rid of the trails along the river. They would not want to get the trails through all the communities. And so one of the things that we've done also is, if you look at what has happened, so I've been involved in Eagle stuff for about 20 years, is we have really looked at trying to put that on the backs of the larger subdivisions that come to town. So Legacy, for instance, they have a bunch of trails and stuff in there that the existing taxpayers aren't paying for. They're being paid for through the HOA fees, which are something that they agreed to when they bought their house. Spring Valley, that's happening up north of Beacon Light, same thing. They're going to have tons of stuff that they take care of, and it's not put on the backs of all the taxpayers. It's those people moving in there knowing that what they're going to pay.
Yeah, way better. And by the way, just for point of reference, in Boise, the Jump Project, there's a big park facility there. And they got in a huge tiff with the city of Boise, because the city of Boise said, well, if you're going to have some kind of park amenities, then that ought to be a city park,
Right.
which is sort of a different approach. So I appreciate the fact that there are instances where the market and particularly the property owners are driving and controlling those usages.
Yeah, and they are. It doesn't just come from a vacuum. Like I said, every 5 to 7 years, we have to relook at that comprehensive plan. It tells in there how many police per 1,000 people, how much acres of parks we have to have, how many miles of trails. All this information is there, and the public can come and give all their input they want, and eventually the council makes the decision. But then obviously if the council doesn't make the decision that people want, they're not there.
Right. Okay. Now listen. Like I said, you and I haven't interacted a whole lot.
Right.
But there was one time when I was like, I just got to let this guy know that this is bothering me a little bit. And I don't remember if you responded or not, but I sent you a text and I said, really, Jason? You're going to do broadband in the city of Eagle?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me why that is a conservative free market concept.
Perfect. I love this. So here's my thing is, the city of Eagle residents will own the fiber. They will not be the ISP. Okay. So what happens is, now you have one connection to every building, every house within the city, but you can have 4, 5, 6 different companies on there to choose from. So right now you have a situation where you have 2 companies in Eagle. You have Sparklight and you have CenturyLink. And so those are the only options people have. So the average person for around 100 megabits is paying in the $60, $70 range. Okay, we are going to be able to provide 1 gig up and 1 gig down for $55 a month. Okay, and then they're going to be able to choose what ISP they want, and in that will be that cost of that $55. The reason it is because one is, we are moving towards a couple of things. You've got these large broadband companies that are going to have the money to come into these communities and do things, and then they have control of what can be maybe seen or not seen on that broadband. We can have every different ISP. So you could have Google fiber on there. You could have Sparklight, CenturyLink. We could have Acme Internet, Sumo, right? All these small mom and pops that won't have the same regulations as the bigger companies. So right now you don't have a choice. So these big companies that are taking like federal money and all that, what happens if the feds start making them do certain things? We can say, no, we want the company that's going to leave your internet open so you can go out and see whatever you want. It can't be controlled by companies saying you can't see this and you can't see that, because that's what I see happening in the future. I see somehow these companies we see it in everyday things right now. I'm having issues right now with a media company that we're trying to get people out to talk about our podcast, and they're saying, oh, no, this is political stuff. And all we're doing is trying to get information to the residents. to tell them, hey, this is what's going on in your community. So where is that going to go in the future? And if the people don't control it of the community, then I see it being able to be taken over by some of these bigger companies. And once, you look at how many small companies are going under because these big companies are taking over. And when we put the fiber in as the city, we can allow small companies to be competitive with the bigger companies.
Well, but, I mean, you're the mayor now, and obviously you're a believer in free speech and various aspects of our constitutionally protected God-given rights.
Yep.
But you may not be the mayor in the future, and then you have this fiber optic network that's connecting people that they depend on, and the mayor could at that point say, well, gosh, this is being used by company ABZ down the road for political purposes, and we should cut them off. Does that concern you?
No, I totally agree with you. That's a concern, but that's why we have to get people to remember you have to know who you're voting for. And if at some point the city of Eagle residents want someone and are going to elect someone that does that, then that's on them. We talk about all these different things, but we ultimately have the choice of who we put into office as a people. We do. And so if we want to keep our community conservative and going the right way, we need to start doing the things that keep it conservative. I think the reason we've been losing a lot lately is because we don't take advantage of the things that can help us keep a community conservative because it doesn't fit the mold of what conservatives sometimes says, but we're being beat by those that are willing to do those things to keep the communities liberal. And so something like this, you're right, in the wrong hands, but anything in the wrong hands. But that's why the people have to remember you have to get out and vote and make sure you know who you're voting for.
Okay, so apart from, so you would acknowledge there's at least an inherent risk
Oh,
in
yes,
the
there
city
is.
owning an internet connectivity portal, if you will. But the other thing also, I just wonder if you, I'm sure you've thought about all of this because it's obviously been stuff that's come up. When I was a reporter in Arkansas, Northeast Arkansas, in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I was 5. And the city of Paragould, Arkansas came up with this, they said, great plan to provide options for cable consumers. There was one cable company in town, and by golly, we're gonna provide an alternative. You can still use that cable company, but you can use the city of Paragould, Arkansas's cable system that they put together, and it'll be at a competitive rate, and you can choose which one's better. And then it was just a year or two later that people started getting satellite dishes and stuff. And you're just on the cusp of that too, where people are starting to experiment things like Starlink. Isn't it possible that you've created this thing that will be obsolete in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
So I had 35 years in the IT business. That was my job and my life. And I've been hearing it forever that, fiber is going to go away, fiber all this, fiber won't work, something else will come along, and nothing has. Nothing is like a hardwired connection. Okay, the wireless stuff can be jammed. The wireless stuff can be taken out. You've got one satellite that could take out millions of people if they take that out. We've had some of that in the Valley. There was a company called Clearwire that was then bought out by Sprint and then sold off. I mean, there's been those things that have come and gone. Wireless is great to me as a secondary, but as your main source and making sure that it's permanent for you, you got to remember we're going to start. Fiber is going to does a lot of things, and we go back to the conservative talk is you've got telehealth. Okay, telehealth is going to be really important in this valley as we move forward. And people having good internet, you need to be able to hear if it said take 3 of those pills or 2 of those pills, right? There can't be a mix in that. You've got homeschooling. I mean, homeschooling is one of the most conservative things that we have going in this country. And when you have good broadband, you can do more stuff with homeschooling. You've got small businesses. We're trying to attract those mom and pop and small businesses. And if you can have lower cost, more affordable internet, it makes it better for them to survive. You've also got the people that work from home, right? A lot of those folks are conservative also in these bigger companies and stuff. And so that they have good internet at home. So, yeah. I mean, I don't see it ever going away. I think the hardwired is always going to be the thing that works. The other thing we're able to do with the broadband and the fiber is we're able to lessen the 5G that will come into our community also. And so that's a big important thing for our residents also.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask you one more question about that, and then we'll get off that topic entirely because I just find it fascinating. Like I said, I'm a skeptic about it.
Yeah.
So this is part of my skepticism. If it's so important, why would you want the government to maintain that system? It's like how would I expect that the fiber optic network run by a city government would not be run the way the transportation department or the ACHD runs the highways, which is not that great.
Right. So once again, it has to be with who you elect and make sure you're doing it right. I see what you're saying in the point of, running it. So the problem is nobody else is going to do it. Our densities are so low in Eagle, it doesn't make sense. And a mile of fiber in Eagle, you might get 1,000 residents on it. On a mile of fiber in Meridian, you're getting 6,000 people on it because of the densities of their homes. Those investments are not being made back into our community like they should be. Even in new subdivisions, some of these companies that have a stronghold on it are not even giving enough saturation for everybody to get on the internet. They're telling them, sorry, we don't have enough connection for you here right now. You're going to have to find somebody else, because they need a return on investment. They have to make money. We don't have to make money at the City of Eagle. We can break even. So we can do something and provide this. Like I said, we're providing the fiber, but the companies can come on and be the ISPs, the different companies for it. So it really ends up saving if I can save my residents $30, $40 a month for better service, I mean, that's a huge savings for them. And what we saw other cities doing was using ARPA money and other things to help bring in other competitors. So you're helping a private company with public money. Why not take the public money and use it for a public entity that the people own? There's this thought sometimes, and it is in the bigger side of government, but in local government, the people, I'm just a figurehead for the people of Eagle. I'm not some mystical, running, it was kind of, you said president, right? I mean, mayor even. I tell everybody to call me Jason.
I know. It's largely because I was watching the debt ceiling fight last night and so I'm still on this national kind of mindset. And so I'm like, okay, I've got to talk about local government stuff. What's this guy's title again? Oh yeah, mayor, not president, not member of Congress.
But so it's really,
I get that.
It's at the local level, you have so much. It's so much easier to make sure that the people that you're electing are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so than it is on the bigger scale.
Let me ask you this, though, because, again, this is a very interesting conversation, very philosophical. And you're one of the cities that every year the federal government comes along. They've got tons of federal grants. Now, ARPA is one that we talked about. That's a little unusual, so we'll forget ARPA. But community development block grants, for example, or various other federal funds. How do you feel about those?
So we haven't done we don't use a lot of those, if at all. We had one where we were working with the state, federal, and local to build the pedestrian bridge that we just got done, which was a 10-year project. But we don't take a lot of that federal funding right now. We're not at the size. I think you have to be over 50,000 people, and we're at 33. And so we are not. Now, what we do is we will sometimes work with the state or do something to get grants, but it's got to come through them first. So here's my kind of philosophy on that is Eagle taxpayers pay federal taxes. Okay? So what can we do to try to get their money back to their community so we're not raising their property taxes to provide the services that they said they wanted? And so how do we do that? And that's one of the ways is to look at that. A lot of people during ARPA said, Jason, why are you taking this ARPA? There's all this, strings attached and everything else. And I'm like, well, the strings really aren't attached to us the way it comes through to us. I go, and the other thing is that it's our federal tax dollars. We're paying it. They're going to print it. If Eagle, Idaho says no to that money, and it's a philosophical thing also.
There you go.
I was getting there.
It took a while.
And so is that those are our taxpayers are paying that money. We need to get that brought back in because if Eagle says no to that money, they're not going to not print it. They're going to give it to somebody else who takes advantage of it. So that's why we used most of that money for the fiber is what can we do to make Eagle better for the future with this money and help our residents long-term save money on internet service and everything else. And that was one of the ways we were able to do it. So we were able to use the money that they paid in taxes, but we're also to be able to create something that'll save them money in the long run also.
Okay, so we can dwell on that, but I want to kind of get into what the future looks like. Let's say you're reelected November, and I don't know who's running against you, if anyone's running against you, but we'll probably talk to them, I'm sure, if that happens. But What do you see happening if you're elected for another 4-year term?
I think it's going to be more of the same in the sense of just making smart decisions for the community, making sure we get the fiber going through, continue to provide for the community what they want. I do a coffee with the mayor every Wednesday at 9 a.m. at City Hall. I got 40 or 50 rotating different people that come to that, and they get to give their opinions, and anybody can come to it and ask about what's going on. So it's about making sure we have very transparent government. It's making sure that everybody knows what's going on that wants to. It's making sure that we create a community that people 20 years from now will be able to say the same thing they did 20 years ago or today when they moved here, which is, oh my gosh, Eagle, I just love what you've done here. I love, the fact of the open spaces and the parks and the things you make your developments do. They're different than anywhere else around.
How many employees do you have?
City of Eagle's got about 80.
How many employees does the City of Eagle have at the end of another 4-year term?
How many what now?
Let's say you're reelected and 4 years go by. How many employees do you think the City of Eagle would have?
You're probably going to be about the same. I don't see another 4 years doing. So there's a couple things that we did actually to add some employees these last couple of years, but it in turn saved the taxpayers a bunch of money that we were not able to have to go back and ask for more in property taxes or other things. And we've been creative. So a lot of the stuff we've done is private-public partnerships. We built a dog park that was totally done by a company in Eagle called Pet IQ that put the money towards it, and they went and built it for us, right? So instead of putting all that on the backs of the taxpayers, we did that. We have this huge event called Eagle Fun Days every the weekend after 4th of July, right? It's a project that cost our residents, $60,000 for the city put on, but they love it. It brings a bunch of money into the local businesses. But what we've done now is we've gone out and got sponsorships, right? So we're doing all these things to get people to invest in our community so we don't have to continue to use tax dollars and continue to get the rates up.
Is the City of Eagle sponsoring any of this month's Gay Pride stuff?
No, we will not be.
Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
You never know. Any other thoughts you want to share before we go?
No, and it's kind of interesting you say that. One of the big things that we did when I became mayor is we have on our light posts, we have American flags going all through town. And that is something that we're proud of. I think everybody in Eagle is an American, and we are proud to be Americans. And so, I actually had a resident ask me one time, well, why are those still up there? I understand during, 4th of July or whatever. And I said, because that's one thing we all have in common. Is we're all Americans. It doesn't matter what political party you are or anything. And you can try to deny that, but you are.
Well, it's certainly a lot different driving through, say, the city of Boise, really even Meridian, versus what you see in Eagle when you go through. So there's a very different feel, and it's notable.
Well, I appreciate that. We're proud of our city. We're proud of our country, and we want to tell everybody.
Mayor Jason, thanks for being on here.
Well, I appreciate it.
Glad
Thank you
to
very
have
much.
you. And hey, if there's anyone else you'd like us to talk to, let us know. We're always interested in having interesting guests like this one come on. So be sure to drop me a note, Wayne@idahofreedom.org, and we'll talk to you again next time.
You've been listening to the Hoff Time Report with Wayne Hoffman. Be sure to visit idahofreedom.org for Wayne's articles, IFF research, and show notes from today's episode.